how near retirees could lose 13% of their Social Security benefits on annual numbers every year because of the shutdown. This is bad. And this is from my man Andrew Biggs over at the AEI, American Enterprise Institute. And man, it's just not good. No other way around that. So let's dive into it, and I'll share the bad news. Now, Andrew, I've interviewed a couple times on my channel. He is a proponent not to be fall for the fear-mongering of the retirement crisis. So when Andrew writes this, it may be a concern, and it should make you concerned too. And I was actually able to email Andrew because I had some questions. He clarified it for me, which makes it even worse. But appreciate that. So I'm hoping to get him back on the channel. So let's look at the abstract. As a group, retirees are more financially insulated from the economic effects of the shutdown than most other demographic groups in the U.S. Yet, due to how the Social Security benefit formula interacts with the sharp economic downturn, some groups of near retirees are likely to suffer substantial reductions to their benefits permanently. Assuming a 15% decline in the Social Security Administration's measure of economy-wide average wages in 2020, a middle-income worker born in 1960 could have his annual benefit reduced by 13%, his annual benefit, with losses in excess of $70,000 over the course of his retirement. Now, he talks about some solutions, which we're not going to get into, but so let me share with you what, just real quick, how they figure. Andrew takes the first part of this to tell you how they figure out their Social Security benefit. I'm not going to do that here. I've done that a million times on the video on the YouTube channel, which you can see under my Social Security playlist. But just remember, they take your top 35 years of income that has been indexed, and the indexing is based on the average wage index, which we're going to dive into here in just a second. So if you made, like I said, in 1991, I made $11,000 as an infantryman. I can't remember exactly what my indexing is being born in 1970 for my income in 1991, but we'll just say 4. So I take that $11,000, I times that by 4. My indexing amount in 1991 is thus $44,000. I hope that makes sense. Now, that is part of my 35 years of highest years of income indexed for 35 years. So we take every year of income, we index it by a factor that the Social Security Administration has determined. You times those together, and then they take the top 35 of those years. They add them up, then they divide by 420, which gives you your AIME, which we'll talk about here in just a second. AIME is your average index monthly earnings. Now, if you have 50 years of earnings, you'll guarantee 15 of those years will not be included in the formula. You pay taxes, but you will get no benefit. If you have 20 years, 20 years will be included, but then you have 15 years of goose eggs, 15 years of zeros, all right? So they're still going to take, the divisor is going to be 420, regardless if you have 20 years of income, regardless if you have 50 years of income or 35, it doesn't matter. If you have 50, you're going to have 15 years that aren't used. If you have 20 years of earnings, you're going to have zeros for 15 years. And if you have 35, they're going to take every single year. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's keep going. And that's how they figure out your AIME, which is not your benefit. All right, but that's the starting point. All right, so I want to go down to where he says, hold on just a second. All right, hold on right here. All right, right here. For 2018, the most recent year for which data are available, the average wage index was 52,146. The Social Security report projected that the nominal increase would be 8% to $56,000. So they're basically saying the increase in the average wage index will go from 52 to 56, an 8% increase. This is highly likely to be overstated because of the shutdown. How big a decline there will be in the AWI is uncertain, but it could be substantial due to the manner in which the changes in AWI are calculated. The number of W-2s issued in 2020 is not likely to decline much because unemployment was high in January and through March, but earnings are dropping sharply as layoffs and furloughs take effect. This implies that the aggregate payroll total for 2020 will be substantially what it was in 2019, which means the trustees' report is likely to fall, the actual report is likely to be far short of the level projected by the trustees. They take the payroll, they take the average wage, and they times them together, and they give you the average wage index. Well, the payroll numbers are probably still going to be pretty high, but the actual wages received are going to be low, so we're going to have a significant decline from the 8% increase year over year that they're projecting to what the reality is. At this time, we're predicting a 24% and a 30% decline in GDP in the second quarter of 2020. To examine the possible impact of this, I assume for illustrative purposes that GDP shrinks by 24%, and that'll recover. They'll level off in the third quarter and then recover by 15% in the fourth. So it goes down in this quarter we're in now, Q2, by 15, levels off in the third quarter, and the fourth quarter is up by 15%, which produces an average GDP in 2020 about 15% below levels in the first quarter of the year. I further posit that the average labor earnings follow the same pattern. Again, so we have the number of people on the payroll, we have the number of actual dollars they make. The number of people on the payroll was pretty high because you had record unemployment, but record employment, but the number of dollars fell off a brick and water. All right. So he says wages, he predicts that wages will be 15%. I further assume, that wages will be about 15% below what the trustees report said in 2020. And he's predicting about 10% below what they said for 2021 and another 5% below what they said in 2022. So he's predicting 15, 10, and 5 wages. Then in 2023 will be at projected levels. Clearly, these assumptions embody extreme uncertainty, but they do serve to illustrate how a decline in the average economy-wide wages can affect the benefits of Americans nearing retirement. He then utilizes some stylized earnings patterns generated by the Social Security's Office of Chief Actuary. These are so-called scaled earners and are intended to represent typical life cycle earnings pattern from very low earners to medium earners to high earners. Each scaled earner type is posited to earn a given percentage of the average wage index at each age throughout his working career. Let's see. In the years when the AWI is assumed to decline due to the economic shutdown, scaled earnings also are assumed to fall. So basically saying GDP and the earnings are going to fall simultaneously at pretty much the same level. All right. So this is where it gets scary. A decline in the average wage index versus previously forecasted levels affects the benefit formula for Americans born in 1960 in two ways. First, a lower AWI for 2020 reduces the value of the 1960s cohort's average index monthly earnings, AIME. In percentage terms, a shortfall in the AWI versus previously forecast levels does not reduce AIMEs on a one-for-one basis, because earnings after age 60 are included in the calculation for cost of living. However, the impact remains significant. All other things equal, a lower AIME will result in a lower Social Security benefit in retirement. Again, you take your top 35 years of indexed earnings, divide by 420, that gives you an AIME. If you have a couple of years of pretty significantly or drastically reduced AIME, it could affect your overall Social Security benefit substantially. It might not, but it could. It gets worse. Secondly, lower growth of the AWI, is average wage index, is also carried through the Social Security bend points used to designate the dollar values of AIME that are replaced on a 90, 32, and 15% basis. I've talked a million times about bend points. Just remember, for the first $960 of your AIME, you get 90% of that. Amount from 960 to 5785, you get 32% of that. Any amount above 575, you get 15% of that. So just remember, that's how the bed points work. All right, so compared to the baseline simulations using the 2019 trustees report assumptions, the assumed lower economy-wide averages for wages from 2020 reduce the average index month from 2020 through 2022, reduces the AIME of skilled earners from very low to high earners by 13%. However, the entire percentage of reduction is not carried through to benefits. Nevertheless, annual retirement benefits will be lower between 13.6% and 14.3%, depending upon the earnings of the earner. For a medium wage worker, annual retirement benefits would fall by $3,900 a year. That means lifetime benefits will fall by $70,000 in total. In present value, not even adjusted for inflation, just in present. The maximum wage earner will lose $148,000. The very low wage earner would lose $24,000. He talks about some ways you're going to beat that. I'll put a link in the show notes. But I want to share with you because that's bad. And I said, well, I don't get it. So I emailed Andrew because I said, what am I missing here? So let me share with you what he said to me, because I thought that I said, yeah, I get it. You have a couple bad years of earnings. That shouldn't affect you too much, right? Right? And he said, because I said, just because you had, I've done videos on this, that your earnings, your AWI, your average wage index, if you have a couple bad years, well, you still have your locked in earnings from previous years. To which he says, if I can find it, hold on just a second. Let me pause it real quick because I have his email here. Let me pause real fast. Where we put it? All right, hold on a second. All right, here's what I asked him. I said, hey, Andrew, just got done reading your article, this one we're talking about now. I'm confused why the lower AWI for the cohort born in 1960 would affect the benefit so much. Doesn't a lower AWI for 2020 just affect that 1 year as my year of birth? Doesn't affect just that 1 year of their earnings indexing. In fact, I said I go here, the Social Security calculation, and I use 1960 as my year of birth, and thus my first year of eligibility is 2022. I still get all the previous years of AWI increasing, right? For instance, what I made in 2000, if I was born in 1960, would be indexed by 1.73020428, and so on. So it seems that 1 year can be reduced, but it shouldn't be a big deal. What am I missing? And then Andrew says, what's going on in your numbers that you're counting on how a lower AWI for a year affects your own earnings in that 1 year versus how the AWI factors in calculating your average earnings over a full career. Say I believe I calculated in my paper that 15% drop in the AWI for this year would lower the inflation-adjusted average of a 60-year lifetime earnings by maybe 1%, simply because it's on 1 year out of maybe 45. But in calculating your career average earnings, Social Security indexes past earnings to the growth to the overall wages of the economy. So if you earned an amount equal to 100% of the average national wage index in 1990, that nominal dollar amount would be indexed equal to 100% of the average national wage in the year you turn 60. If the average national wage in the year you turn 60 drops by 15%, that affects the index values of all your past earnings. Oh my goodness. So they're saying from 1990, for instance, they index it to that, and then they index it for your, in this case, 2020, if you're born in 1960. That average wage index, if it dropped by 60% and 15% in the year you turn 60, that affects all the index values of your past earnings. He said then, the Social Security calculator that I referred to can't incorporate the effects of a lower national AWI. You can only control your own earnings in it, which explains why you're not generating a real difference. So I'm sitting there thinking, holy crap. A 15% decline in your AWI for this 1 year affects retroactively, essentially. That's freaking insane, man. It retroactively reduces your average wage index because, again, they're saying, look, you had 100 in 1990, now you got 120, and we're projecting 120 in 2020. We'll just use that for an example. But that's because we included the projection from 2019 that we thought were going to come to fruition. Well, they didn't. So now it went from 100 to 118, for instance. That's a significant difference in your average annual wage index from 100 to 118 versus 100 to 120. I'm literally just using those numbers. But that affects everything. And it affects your total average index monthly earn, or it affects your total indexed, which is what produces your AIME, which is where you get your PIA from. It's freaking insane. I know this is confusing, but it's insane. And I just sit there, just more. I'll put a link in the show notes for what we need to fix this. But this is bordering on evil, my friends. Anyway, so once again, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. I'm relaying you the bad news because this could have a deep impact. A 13% decline each and every year of $3,900 for an average wage earner. That's 350. Over $330 a month. 300 is $300 more than $300 a month, which is your Part B for both you and your spouse. All right, so more to come. You better pay attention. But remember, why don't you just focus on financial planning? This other stuff has nothing to do with financial planning. The hell it doesn't, man. This has everything to do with financial planning. The economy being shut down hurts financial planning. All right, we'll see. Love to hear your comments. Oh, by the way, do comment because I want to get Andrew back on to talk about this because this is nuts. So more comments, the more interaction we'll have to hopefully get him back on the YouTube channel. All right, thanks.